Hello and welcome today. I'm very excited to be sitting here with Bevin Reynolds. Bevin is a registered counsellor, peak performance coach, elite freediver, and a good friend. She works at the intersection of psychology, human performance, and meaningful change. Bevan recently at the Budapest World Champs claimed the overall female world champion title, swimming 256 meters. She also took 5 continental records and several personal bests. We also are very, very lucky enough to have Bevan as one of our facilitators at Wild Within. Welcome, Bevan. I'm very excited to be here with you today again.
Hello. Thank you for having me here. Very excited to chat.
Yeah, me too. So, yeah, I guess it would be really lovely just to have a quick overview on how did you start freediving? How did you get into diving?
Oh gosh, I started by doing a surf apnea course with John McCarthy, famous for taking people to Sodwana Bay to experience beautiful marine life in the wild, for sure. And yeah, it was there that Ant Latimer saw that there was potential and clocked that I could potentially get, what did he say? Something along the lines of, you could get all the records. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't know anything about freediving. And so then dived into the theory of it actually and listened to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of books, started doing a little bit of breath holding by myself, whoops, just small stuff. And then, because I had to wait like 3 months to do my first course. And so that was in, I think, January of 2022 was I did my first freediving course. And yeah, 3 months later, broke my first national record. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. Yeah.
Amazing. And it was actually not that long after that you went to your first world champs, if I am correct. Is that right?
Yeah, I think the first course to my first world champs was 18 months.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Phenomenal, I think. And I mean, I remember as well, and you were a little bit of an underdog at that champs, right? Obviously being so new to the sport, not many people had heard of you and kind of blew a few people away. What remind me what you achieved in the 2022 World Champs?
Yeah, that was no one even knew I existed because we didn't even have IDA South Africa. Um, so I wasn't on any of the rankings. So yeah, the Bifins event, I did 232 and got the gold medal on the first day. And then on the second and fifth days, I got two, was it silver? Yeah, two silvers. And yeah, the two in total it was 3 continental records and 3 South African records, and ended up with my cumulative points being the vice world champ at my first world champs. Yeah.
Amazing. I think the part of your story which is just so unbelievable is potentially sort of the after of your first world champs. And I know like a couple of months later, you were involved in an accident with your moped. And
Mm.
yeah, just wondering if you can kind of share a little bit about that journey with people.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a bit side swipe from the universe. So 2 months after World Champs, I was driving on a road, my right of way, green robot, just doing my thing on the way to Dis-Chem to go buy protein, as one does from the gym. And yeah, somebody turned into me. They hadn't seen me and knocked me off my scooter. But in the process, my ACL ligament, the ACL ligament in my right knee was ruptured. So I had to have ACL reconstructive surgery, which in essence, and then there were other injuries. So I couldn't walk as quickly as they normally recommend when you've had an ACL reconstruction. So then what happens, a lot of the muscles waste away because I couldn't walk on it for a couple of months even. So I think it took like 4.5 months for me to like relearn how to walk. And in that time, yeah, you go through a massive physical and emotional journey for sure. But yeah, it was a, a huge blow, and a really tough time.
And I
But the
especially,
recovery from there was long.
yeah, and like after the high, which was only a couple of months previous of the World Champ,
Mm,
and I'm sure feeling extremely motivated and geared up, and then to sort of be put back by that. I'm really curious around, and then like 4 years later to go on and like totally smash the champs in Budapest, like what, especially in those times when I know that you were bedridden, right? You couldn't walk. What
yeah.
was your like what kept you motivated? What kept your kind of resilience or mindset, or what was it?
I think initially, what I did was I signed up with a static apnea coach, so Mr. 10 Minutes. He specializes in static apnea, and I literally held my breath on my bed with my leg up on a pillow, wrapped in like ice and like cast and everything. So I trained from my bed, and I think that in a way it helped me to still have some sense of control, some sense of agency, and a feeling like I was still doing something towards my sport. I often said it like kind of kept me sane during that really tough time because it's such a blow at like multiple levels. Like this kind of injury, like it's identity, it's your body, it's something a place where you have been able to experience extreme mastery, and now that's like ripped away from you. And what was particularly painful was that it felt so outside of my control. Um, so coming back to your question, in terms of resilience, I really allowed myself to feel all the feelings because it ultimately was an exceptionally painful process with a lot of grief. That included quite a bit of anger. Like the driver didn't see me. Like it was totally his fault. Like I couldn't even go like, well, I shouldn't have or I should have. It was literally like, oh my gosh, you hit me. Like you didn't see me. So it was really hard to like not want to rage, which I did end up doing some. I allowed myself to rage at this other human. Um, and then really ultimately had to just pick up the pieces in a very yeah, it was a real excavation of kind of my deep inner being. But I gave myself space to do that, and I got help, spoke to people, spoke to friends, and then the community of freedivers were just amazing in terms of the support. So that was also exceptionally invaluable. And good old mom. Yeah.
Think as well, like a lot of people would have potentially just crumbled or quit. And I'm really interested when you talk about that sort of inner resource, if it is even like ways that you were able to like dig down into that, like what allowed for that?
Um, I think there's I don't know, maybe it's like just a never give up kind of mentality that I have sometimes had to my detriment, to be fair. I've had to learn to balance it, not to push too hard. But something inside of me was like really determined to not let this get me down. I was like, there is no way that I am going to let this take me off the path. Because when I found freediving, it was so meaningful to me. I literally felt like I had landed on like some kind of personal gold. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my thing. And so there was like just something inside of me that was absolutely not willing to let that go. Um, yeah, and there was definitely also an element of like a bit of fuck you to the patriarchy, because apparently, if you don't mind me saying, um, there's like really like scary statistics around ACL reconstruction and return to sport. It's something like 78% of men return to the level of sport that they were at before the injury, but only like 43% of women. And I was literally like, why? What is this about? And I was like, I am not going to be that statistic. Yeah, I was like just really determined. So the inner feminist came online too.
Nice, nice. That rage is like working for you, right?
100%.
And actually, what I hear is this beautiful, almost slightly dichotomy or paradox, which we often find in life, but that when you are able to be with whatever the circumstances are and the emotions are, and validating and going through that, while still, like, on some level, this kind of like, I won't let this also overcome me, like
Mm,
this the layers, but like tapping into that sort of inner resource that you talk about, which is really, really beautiful.
mm. 100%. I think you nailed it really beautifully there, Kim. Yeah, it's both and because and there certainly are times when it doesn't feel like you have access to that why and to that reason. Like it can really like there were moments when I felt exceptionally bereft. But then somehow I'd like just be able to come back to yeah, what I wanted to do, which was continue. Um the story was not done, the journey was not over.
I'm really
Yeah.
also interested in how you feel that experience has now like influenced your diving now. Perhaps if you can also share like on maybe like actually in your training and obviously the more like
Mm.
physical, but very much as well like that sort of internal and
Mm.
what's shifted and changed as a result of that.
Uh, yeah, it's a lovely question because it was quite an awakening as well because I realized I needed to have a much more holistic approach. I think this time around with training, I put a lot more focus on recovery, on rest. I paid a lot more attention to my nervous system. Um, really try to give my body and my mind much more support than before. I think before I was just like, I'm in love with freediving. How far can I go? And I like a bit like this. And now was, just yeah, maybe a more mature diver or a more holistic diver. And I gave myself a lot of time to regain my trust as well, like trust with my body. So I think it allowed me to go do a bit of depth diving and to do a lot more adventure and like really pay attention to the community and do a judge's course. And so it kind of just expanded my world and I couldn't just be the athlete. I needed to take on more in a way in terms of how I saw freediving and its role in my life. Yeah, but ultimately then came back to a much more streamlined approach, and that which I mentioned earlier with you, just around trying to really paying attention to what I want to give my energy to now and being quite discerning with that. Yeah, so it's very interesting and it's an ongoing journey for sure. Yeah.
Of course, like the human experience, right? Freediving does reflect that back to us. And I know when we had that sort of conversation just earlier as well, it's like talking about the difference between performance and actually being driven from more of an intrinsic motivator, which it was you were sharing a little bit on like how things have sort of shifted now. I wonder if you could like explain a little bit about that because again it's like this paradox we feel like if I push and train harder but it doesn't actually always give us what we want and the results we want, and even if we get the results it's not always like with the satisfaction in a way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think there can be so many sneaky motivators for why we can like strive for like numbers and targets in terms of like that particular goal and outcome. And if I get back to the layers of it, there was definitely like a younger version of me that was like, I need to prove myself. I need to like show myself that I can do these things. Definitely some childhood stuff around, maybe daddy will be proud of me now. God, Freud would have a there. But and but then through this whole journey, really, and reflecting back on it a lot. yeah, it's I'm arriving in a place now where it's like those things are still important to me. I do want to reach targets and go further and explore my limits, and I'm still curious about what's possible. But it feels like it's coming from such a different place now, like less empty or less like I need to prove my worth, and more around like, damn, I get a lot of satisfaction from this process. I like who I become. I like where this takes me. Yeah, I love the people that I meet along the way. And so it's just been such a lovely shift, really. Yeah.
Beautiful. And ultimately, like that's where the locus of control is in like who we become in the face of the challenges that, like rather than the end result of the striving and stuff. So beautiful. Yeah. Bevan, thank you so much for your time. As always, really lovely sharing the space with you and hearing your wisdom. Yeah, and for anyone that's interested, Bevan and myself sort of facilitate Wild Within workshops, teaching people around mindset, nervous system, and using free diving as a transformational tool to do that. So please just drop a message if this is of interest. But in the meantime, Bevan, enjoy your time in Thailand. And yeah, thank you again. It's been beautiful.
Thank you so much, Kim, and lovely chatting as always.